Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show, everyone. We are the nation's longest running nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Everyone, how you doing? Welcome into the Computer America Show. Today on the show, we have a full hour of computer and technology news, a lot of different stories, a lot of different segments, everything from of course, the latest flight on Mars, the historic flight on Mars, and they even hid some nice little I guess you would say Easter eggs in there. It's some very cool stuff that we can talk about there. We have other, including Apple, unfortunately partnering with some not as reputable secondhand kind of companies that are willing to trade in for your phone, but then, people are having a lot of complaints. So we'll talk about that. Sony is deciding to not close its PlayStation Network for PlayStation 3s, which is a surprise because it was supposed to be closing this summer, and more. Hey, we have a lot of computer and technology news. So everyone sit back, relax, and enjoy. We have a great show for you. We hope that you had a great weekend and you're ready for the program. So before we get started, everyone, computeramerica.com. That's where you'll find everything, past shows, future shows, all the shows. I promise we'll get caught up this week and we'll be all good to go. Everyone, you can find the latest there, including articles, reviews, social media links, the podcast, of course. If you can't catch us on IRN, well, hey, that's the second best place to catch us, which is wherever podcasts are heard. We promise we're there and we'll be good to go. So with that being said, and yes, of course, according to Craig, tomorrow at 1 Eastern will be Apple's spring event, and we'll be sure to cover that tomorrow on the program as well. And like we said, we're expecting a lot of product updates, mostly focused around the lacking iPad and other product lines. But it should still be fun to see what Apple is rolling out and what they're going to do. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and continue on. And let's go ahead and do computer and technology news, brought to you by Computer America. Here we go. So I think that our first story that we're going to do is, I think I just did that. Yeah, perfect. Our first story that we're going to do is a pretty timely update, and this coming to us from Tom's Hardware, great publication, and they have a story concerning the latest update for Windows 10. Yeah, Windows 10. They say that it's best to avoid it if possible. This happened just in the past 5 hours. And if you are really nerdy, you can, of course, check the update KB001337 for builds 1909 and 1903 are causing issues, including frame rate bugs and, of course, the ever persistent blue screen of death. So if you want to avoid those things, and I'm sure that Microsoft is working behind the scenes to really make sure that's not going to happen. But in the meantime, it might be worth putting off the latest Windows 10 update just for a couple of days while they hammer out the bugs. They said that the issues don't end there. For some people, the gaming-related issues vary wildly. Some user experience unstable frames per second with VSync enabled. VSync is like one of those things that when it works great, and it's supposed to work like it's supposed to. No one has a complaint, but whenever anything goes wrong, turning off VSync is usually one of my first things that I kind of look for, to turn off. It affects so many parts, and I don't know what it is about that particular software, but man, when it messes up in a big way. So VSync enabled, you could have issues when sharing a screen on Discord. For others, the issues are completely game dependent. Additionally, there have been numerous reports of other issues that aren't related to gaming, like DNS domain name server issues and boot looping. So obviously your computer will try over and over again to turn on. For some, the update won't even install and will stay stuck at a certain percentage while installing. All seems like pretty typical updating nightmares. So all that good stuff. And they mentioned that you can, of course, roll back to the latest version if you have it yourself and you're experiencing issues. Obviously, Windows 10 will force you to update over time, but you might want to try to, delay it just that little bit. So Windows 10 update, delay it just for a couple of days. Just a little heads up there. According to some reports, people have been experiencing issues. Now, our next story, let's string Microsoft to Microsoft. And this one should be obvious to most people who have ever used a password. Microsoft, the one, the only, says that a mandatory password changing is ancient and obsolete. Obviously, old hat and not useful. Very strong words for the handy-dandy password. Saying that the company speaks out against the age-old practice, although, they're saying bucking a major trend, which is, of course, not changing your passwords constantly and, doing all that kind of thing. But at the same time, Microsoft was also one of the ones who were really pushing for a passwordless future, that you change the way that we enter accounts or the way that we verify people based on some other factor, be that biometric, two-factor authentication, be that just so many different ways that we could do it. And they're saying that, well, passwords aren't the way to do it, and that passwords are doing more harm than good. They're saying that in a largely overlooked post published late last month, Microsoft said it was removing periodic password changes from security baseline settings it recommends for customers and auditors. After decades of Microsoft recommending password changes on the regular, Microsoft employee said that the requirement is an ancient and obsolete mitigation of very low value. The issue there is that, and I have worked in some places that have had very strict, 6 passwords a month, like every 5 days, change your password. And I'll be honest, the majority of people who, of course, share their password with me, had passwords 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Because you couldn't just swap between 2, it wouldn't let you do, kind of the same password within the same rotation. And yeah, it was just the same password with the number 1, the number 2, the number 3, the number 4. It really was not that much more complex. And I think that a lot of people run into that. Your brain is only so big, your ability to recall is only so great. And trying to remember 15, 20, and I believe when we had that interview with NordVPN, NordPass, but they were saying that the average person has 60 to 70 different accounts. And of course, myself, I have like 130. So the ability to have largely good, constructive passwords is probably not in anyone's capability, which is why we recommend any password manager that's just going to make you safer right off the bat. But even so, changing your password on the regular is probably not enough either. Now, they say that the change of heart is largely the result of research that shows passwords are most prone to cracking when they're easy for the end user to remember, such as when they use a name or phrase from a favorite movie or book. Over the past decade, hackers have mined real-world password breaches to assemble dictionaries of millions of passwords. Combined with super fast graphics cards, the hackers can make huge numbers of guesses in offline attacks, which occur when they steal the cryptographically scrambled hashes that represent the plain text passwords. So essentially what they have, when they steal a password and they have the hash for it, there's hashing and salting, which is a whole, essentially the way that they encrypt it. You hash something, let's say it's Ben, you hash it, it becomes a long string of numbers and letters, and then you have the salt to, of course, then put it back into plain text. It's the encrypt-decrypt style of doing that. So when you have the plain text password, you can, of course, say, okay, here is, here's the password. What is the hash? The hash is this. Therefore, you can kind of reverse engineer it and get the salt for it. And you, of course, know that, this turns into this, so that other things turn into this. To be able to guess people's passwords, all you have to do is just punch in, football, baseball 1, name of website, password is a secret, punch in all of these different things. And remember, there have been literally billions of human thought passwords leaked in all these breaches that are then put into these master lists and, kind of guessed at. And if it's ever been part of that breach, which again, we always recommend people go to Have I Been Pwned, which is a great website that now also does phone numbers, by the way, just a little heads up. If your password has been part of a previous breach, there's a good chance that it's in someone's dictionary, and it's going to, like, even if it's a great long password, if it's been breached by plain text or in one of these breaches before, the odds of it being breached again are, instead of 40 years, it could take just a matter of seconds because it's been used before. So it needs to be long, complex, special characters, numbers, letters, capital letters, lowercase letters, and it needs to be unique. That is probably one of the most important factors. So obviously, the graphics cards are getting better, hackers are getting better access to better tools, and you just need to be better. And changing your password, unfortunately, is not it. If you can remember it, it's not a good password. They're saying that even when users attempt to make it harder for hackers to guess easy-to-use passwords, such as, hey, instead of the letter L, use 1. Instead of O, use 0. Hackers can use programming rules that modify the dictionary entries. As a result, they provide little protection against modern cracking techniques. Now, researchers have increasingly come to the consensus that the best passwords are at least, check this out, 11 characters long, randomly generated, and made up of upper and lowercase letters, symbols, and numbers. Those traits make them especially hard for most people to remember, and those same researchers have warned that mandating password changes every 30, 60, 90 days or any other period would be harmful, because obviously you have things like $, $, word, 1, being 1, which would completely fulfill all the requirements of a quote-unquote safe password, but then the next time it becomes the same special characters 2, 3, 4, like I was just saying. Happens all the time, and doesn't really help anyone. So despite the growing consensus among researchers, Microsoft and other large organizations have been unwilling to speak out against this because it's a safety blanket. It's the theater of it all, that if you're doing it properly, if you're doing it right, you'll be safe, even if you do it as low effort as possible. Now, with that being said, within the blog post, he mentioned things like, when humans pick their own passwords, too often they are too easy to guess or predict. When humans are assigned or forced to create passwords, they are hard to remember. Too often they'll write them down so others can see, which I can verify, and I'm sure a lot of people can verify that as well. In offices all over the country, here in the United States, I'm sure if you lifted up a number of keyboards or mouse pads, you would find the password to their computer right there. Now, when passwords or or their corresponding hashes are broken, it can be difficult at best to detect or restrict their unauthorized use. Because obviously, if your password is your password, yeah, they're going to get in. Recent research calls into question the value of many long-standing password security practices, and obviously, the blog post is saying, yeah, we don't recommend this. Now, with that being said, the changes to Microsoft security baseline settings won't change the default included in the Windows Server version, and they will say will continue to be 42 days, less than even the 60 suggested in the old baseline settings. So essentially, this is Microsoft, the company, getting behind the article saying, hey, password changes are stupid, but still mandating them among their own software. Because you know what? Even stupid is better than absolutely nothing. So, yeah. And again, it could just be all theater, but at least it's that little bit of theater. You know, it's kind of like the TSA. At least it's something. Now, hey, you know, no one's gotten a water bottle past those guys in a while, so that's certainly good. How about this next story? And I'm always curious about stories like these because, you know, when it comes to crypto mining, cryptocurrency, I hear a lot about, you know, kind of higher level stuff, and we'll even do an article about this, about the UK potentially adopting cryptocurrency. But mining, it used to be back in the day, anyone with a computer and a GPU, no matter how big, how small, how good, how bad, could download mining software and just get going, you know, and it may be pennies a day, but over the course of, you know, a couple of weeks, couple months, hey, you know, you got some dollars, you're good to go. But the reason why it's just not that competitive, or, you know, it's not competitive to do it at home anymore, is because of these guys. And it's pretty crazy. This coming to us from ZME Science. We don't normally follow this publication, but hey, here we go. They're saying that China is banning one of the world's largest Bitcoin mining hubs. So they're saying that obviously mining Bitcoin consumes as much electricity as the entire country of Argentina or Ukraine, which is very true. Cryptocurrency is a very electricity intensive process, and the saddest part is it doesn't even have to be. It just is. And that's kind of sad. But they're saying that although the recent surge in Bitcoin price has driven even more mining operations across the world, mining tends to be concentrated in certain regions where energy tends to be cheap, which is why I've heard about people renting entire apartments and businesses in places like Brazil, where they of course have a lot of natural gas and oil. And electricity is super cheap, but everything else, you know, is kind of super inflated because it's Brazil. But still, electricity is what matter. You know, you can import the hardware from anywhere, and as long as electricity is cheap, then hey, your bottom line is even better. So by far, the largest Bitcoin mining hub was in China's Inner Mongolia. I had no idea. I'll certainly try to remember that though, which is responsible for 8% of all the planet's Bitcoin mining, saying that for comparison, the entire United States is responsible for just 7.2% of global Bitcoin mining. Yeah, the inner region of Mongolia is responsible for more Bitcoin mining than every single person doing it in the United States, which again makes sense. The price of electricity in the United States comparatively to a lot of places is, you know, pretty high. So, but it's still a fascinating statistic. Mining Bitcoin is extremely energy intensive due to the way that the network was set up, which involves complex algorithms that demand a lot of computing power to solve each time a transaction is verified or a new block is added to the blockchain. And they're saying that's, of course, what Bitcoin mining does. I've talked about it before, but mining for Bitcoin is actually verifying the transactions that are happening on the blockchain, and then, of course, adding new transactions onto the blockchain and verifying it among the entire global ledger that is happening out there. That's why you can't just simply claim that you have 1 million Bitcoin, is because, well, your 1 million Bitcoin will not show up for anyone else. Therefore, it is rejected. So, all these transactions need to happen as fast as they can. Don't get me wrong, some transactions can still take up to, a week to do or more. But still, the transactions need to happen and need to happen pretty quickly. So, with that being said, all that energy, all the networking has to happen somewhere. They're mentioning that it's no coincidence that Inner Mongolia has grown into the world's most important crypto mining hub. The Chinese region, which stretches from the Tibetan Plateau all the way to the Great Bend of the Yellow River towards China's far northeast, is also a huge industrial stronghold and a major hub for physical mining of coal and other rare minerals. They're saying that the concentration of coal mines and coal-fired power plants has made the electricity dirt cheap. But obviously, environmental effects be darned. Now, they're saying that but China's government has apparently had enough, and they're saying that after reviewing the region's energy consumption and energy density, Beijing found that Inner Mongolia failed to meet the 2019 targets it set out, and it was the only one out of China's 30 mainland regions that had failed to meet the target for renewable energy, which of course drew a lot of criticism from the central government. And yeah, there you go. So with that being said, with electricity so dirt cheap, Inner Mongolia rapidly grew to be a Bitcoin mining haven. So, with that being said, the authorities of Inner Mongolia have planned a number of drastic rules and, of course, to curb energy consumption. And with that being said, part of the new ordeal means that plants and factories that use outdated and inefficient technologies to produce steel and other things must close by the end of 2022. Pretty rapid adoption, but something, again, that a country like China can do, where the central government has almost complete control over what private industries can do. So, with that being said, China isn't cracking down on crypto solely out of environmental concerns. The decentralized nature of cryptocurrencies is incompatible with China's governance and tight grip over every aspect of citizens' lives. You can see that cryptocurrency is not exactly in China's wheelhouse. Being the fact that every central financial institution is essentially part of the Chinese government, Bitcoin is extremely not in China's interest. So with that being said, China has taken more of a complex approach, with American billionaire entrepreneur Peter Thiel claiming that China even uses Bitcoin as a financial weapon, which we saw also countries like Saudi Arabia do things like that as well. Bitcoin is a very strange world, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of it. But for now, pretty crazy. Speaking of crazy, ladies and gentlemen, if you are fortunate enough to own a Tesla, and I'm talking one of the new ones, like one of the ones that can drive on their own, quote unquote, don't be crazy. 2 people killed in a fiery Tesla crash with no one driving it. Let's see. Not good. Not good, because it could have been avoided. And this is the difference between, kind of autonomous driving, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4, and stage 5. Stage 5, again, is what these 2 gentlemen were really hoping was that this car was. Stage 5 is you don't even need a steering wheel, you don't need a brake pedal, you don't need a gas pedal, you don't need anything. That thing is going to go from point A to point B completely on its own, perfectly. Stage 1 is things like backup camera, blind spot detection, lane assist, little things like that. Stage 2 is, of course, speed keep and, kind of adding on to those kinds of things. So you can see we are very far away. If this thing is just stage 2 and there's still stage 5 to somehow get to, what these two gentlemen did was really, really, really dumb. Now, authorities said it took 4 hours to extinguish the fire, and that's something also to really highlight there with the lithium-ion batteries. But let's go ahead and talk about this. Texas. Something about Texas. It's really been taking Florida's shine lately. Crazy people used to come from Florida all the time, but now Texas is really upping its game, I got to say. Now, in Texas, 2 people were killed when a Tesla with no one in the driver's seat crashed into a tree and burst into flames. Now, they said that the cause of the crash, which happened at about 9 p.m. in Spring, Texas, near Houston, is under investigation. They're saying that the first responders had to use 30,000 gallons of water over 4 hours to put out the fire. And of course, the Tesla battery kept reigniting. Obviously, a metal fire and a chemical fire is not really going to care all that much about 30,000 gallons of water. But they had to do something. That blaze was only going to get hotter, and I'm sure more and more explosions were likely. But yeah, this is why you can't ship lithium-ion batteries in cargo holds of planes anymore, for exactly this reason. Now, they're saying that authorities tried to contact Tesla for advice on putting out the fire. It's not clear whether they received any response. I'm sure they could have Googled how to put out a lithium fire. And really, the short answer is get a nice distance away from it, shoot water at it if you can, but otherwise you essentially have to let it burn out. That is the nature of batteries. That's just how they go. They don't need oxygen. They don't need anything else. They're going to keep going. And of course, a Tesla is nothing but batteries. Now, preliminary reports suggest that the car was traveling at a high rate of speed and failed to make a turn, then drove off the road into a tree. One of the men killed was the front passenger seat of the car, and the other was in the back seat. And they mentioned that there was no one driving the fully electric 2019 Tesla at the time. Ladies and gentlemen, level 2 autonomous cars need someone. Let's see. Okay. Let's see. There we go. Okay. Now, these vehicles need someone to take the wheel at any given time. And I'm not even sure how they are able to pull this off, because you have to touch the wheel every 60 seconds or something like that before it would have to, kind of come to a safe stop. The only thing that comes to mind is that, they did this stupid stunt and the passenger was reaching over, touching the wheel, simulating that someone was available to take the wheel. They said that Tesla didn't respond to requests for comment. The company dissolved its press office and doesn't usually respond to media inquiries. So obviously, they're going to be very, very quiet about this. But at the same time, I'm sure they're going to run their own diagnostic. And I'm hoping they can at least do something where if there's literally no one sitting in the driver's seat, because I know they have sensors in the seats. If there's no one sitting in the driver's seat, don't engage autopilot. And they mentioned, the thing is by weight and can be tricked easily. Yeah, of course, with touching the wheel. And you're right, you could have a sack of concrete sitting in the driver's seat. The bigger question is, and yes, the sensor's in the wheel, but, the bigger question is, why would they do this? I guess they were testing the limits of the autopilot, playing with their new toy, and just seeing if they could, and it was met with unfortunate consequences. And of course, according to Crowley, my friend has a weight attached to the wheel to avoid the sensor. Boy, that seems like a really bad idea. Like, I get it. Technology can only come so far. This is like the anti-AFK cheating algorithms in, like, let's say, MMOs and places like that. Trust me, I have seen people AFK, but then they were able to defeat the bots because they had a rotating fan with a fork, and they were pressing a button at regular intervals every time the fan would make those rotations. As far as the computer is concerned, a human is inputting that command every single time. But yeah, computers are only so smart. It's not hard to trick these things, but these precautions are in place to protect people because the technology is just not really ready for it yet. Now, with that being said, the article mentions that there are at least 23 autopilot-related crashes under investigation by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, but this appears to be the first fatal crash where there was no driver in the driver's seat. See, and they mentioned that the company's cars only check the attention with a sensor that measures torque on the steering wheel, leaving room for misuse. If people want to trick technology, they will get around it. Super simple. But, we already knew this was going to happen. And this is something that, kind of futurists had kind of warned us about, that if we make this gradual transition, and people had warned Tesla about this, if you start letting people take their attention away from the steering wheel, they're going to take that opportunity, even when they're not supposed to. And that's why some people like Google, or some companies like Google, have argued that we should not have autonomous, level 2, 3, 4 cars and only strive for 5, because we're going to have a number of people who are not going to take control of the wheel, who are not going to pay attention, who are not going to obey the rules. And that's why it's an all or nothing proposition. Yes, give people the ability to, blind spot detection, rear view camera, lane assist, that kind of thing, but just skip right on over to 5. And again, it's an all or nothing game. Honestly, personally, 23 related crashes seems super low. There are 20, 30,000 Tesla shipped every single quarter. And, there's probably, hundreds of thousands of these things on the road. And there's 23 under investigation. Good Lord, Tesla owners are way more restrained than I think a lot of people would have expected. But we're going to make a big deal about the few that actually catch the media's attention. Now, with that being said, Tesla CEO Elon Musk has rejected calls from Tesla engineers to add better safety monitoring when a vehicle is in autopilot, such as eye tracking cameras or additional sensors in the steering wheel, saying that it is ineffective. He said in 2018 that Tesla would regularly release safety data, but added that negative press coverage about it might persuade customers not to use it. So, yeah, he wants to put out the information, but he's afraid of what the media would make of it. And, I don't blame him. That would be a big ask for Tesla to do. Unless it was mandated for every car company to do it, I don't see why Tesla would stick its neck out and do that entirely. So with that being said, fatal accidents are going to happen. Serious crashes are going to happen. People are lackadaisical about how they're going to treat their cars, and the best we could do is make a big deal out of crashes like these and scenes like these and these burnt out vehicles, and hope that when everyone has access to this kind of technology, they don't take it for granted, because again, it's not really there. So I think that for our next story, and let's see if we can find something a little bit more fun. Okay. The big news of the day. No, not the Sony one. NASA successfully flies a small helicopter. Long gone are the days. Although, I'm sure they can still come back, but long gone are the days where NASA remember that time that they accidentally got one of their rovers stuck in a ditch and all it could do was just kind of play in the dirt, where it was stuck? Well, gone are those days. NASA now has a nice little flying helicopter on Mars. And again, this thing is super cool. It even has memorabilia from the first flight in the United States, with the Wright brothers. There was actually a piece of fabric that was part of the original craft that was flown by the Wright brothers, rolled up and attached to this, that is rolled up and attached to Ingenuity. Fun little fact, the drone called Ingenuity was airborne for less than a minute, but NASA is celebrating what represents the first powered, controlled flight by an aircraft on another world. Because I guess up until this point, everything's just been falling, Everything's just been doing gravity's thing. We've landed things, we've rolled around on them like RC cars. We have, I guess, on the moon, we've kind of done takeoff, but that's not really a controlled flight. That's a controlled takeoff because the goal of a controlled takeoff is not to kind of just putter around. You got to get off the planet. So this is something completely new and pretty darn cool. Confirmation came via a satellite at Mars, which relayed the chopper's data back to Earth, and the space agency is promising more adventurous flights in the days ahead, which, let's see, if we mute this, we can actually watch it in real time. It's breathtaking. That's the word for it. Yep. It's just this little flight, this little engineered, for anyone out there just listening to the radio, Ingenuity is literally just floating above the ground a couple of feet and captured by the Perseverance cameras, literally like 10 feet above the ground. It's a start. Saying that we can now say that human beings have flown a rotocraft on another planet, and they mentioned that we've been talking for so long about our Wright brothers moment on Mars, and here it is. And they said that Ingenuity, as I mentioned before, even carries a small swatch of fabric from one of the wings of Flyer 1, the aircraft that made the historic flight at Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, more than 117 years ago. Now, the demonstration saw the Mars copter rise about 3 meters, hover, swivel, settle down. Pretty good for 40 seconds. Sorry about that. Getting airborne on the red planet is not easy. The atmosphere is super thin, just 1% of the density here on Earth. That gives the blades on a rotorcraft very little bite into to gain lift. Essentially, it's so thin. It's these things have to spin incredibly fast for it to actually work. They said that there's help from the lower gravity on Mars, but still a lot of work to get off the ground. The article goes on for a bit, and it's pretty cool. They mention some of the possible uses of Perseverance and Ingenuity, and they even have a nice little image right down here of kind of where the rover is and what they're hoping to do. There's a nice ancient delta where flowing water once carved these features, and they're hoping maybe continuously flowing water is carving these features. That's probably its next mission, is to go check out those flows, see if that's active water or ancient water. Who knows? But we will soon, and that is definitely the coolest thing. Let's go ahead and switch on over our next story. Talk about, this one should be quick. We mentioned it at the top of the hour. Sony. This one from Engadget. Sony is, let's see. Here we go. Sony reverses decision to close the PlayStation 3 and Vita game stores this summer, saying that they were wrong. And, I honestly didn't see this coming. I thought that so many people were not on the platform anymore that it wouldn't really matter. but looks like the PlayStation Vita in particular was one of the driving factors. So they mentioned that you'll be able to buy games through the digital storefront on those consoles for the foreseeable future. However, the company will shut down the PlayStation Portable store on July 2nd. After that date, you'll be able to download any games that you have already purchased. Essentially, you can still use these things as they're intended and as you purchase them, but after July 2nd, no new stuff, no new updates, that's it. At least that was the plan for PS3, PS Vita, and PlayStation Portable. Now it seems to be just the PlayStation Portable. Sony Interactive Entertainment President and CEO Jim Ryan wrote in a blog post that after more reflection on the planned PlayStation 3 and Vita store closures, it's clear that we made the wrong decision here. So today he's happy to say that they have decided to keep the PlayStation Store operational for PlayStation 3 and Vita devices. They said that they initially made the call for several reasons, including being able to place more focus on platforms where most of its users are currently playing, which would be, of course, PS4 and PS5. And he also cited commerce support challenges for older systems. Obviously, you have to, let's see, the PlayStation 3 came out in 2005? PlayStation 3 release date. 2006. My bad. 2006. So the problem with that is that you have a 15-year-old console. Some of the architecture, the underlying coding of it, and of course the infrastructure, the sales, all that kind of thing, the downloading is 15 years old. You can't just completely wipe that and update that with the latest operating system. Some things are just hardwired, hard-grained into the hardware that software is. With all that being said, you would have to keep someone on staff continuously to support old 15-year-old hardware. It looks like for now, they're willing to do that. But eventually, it's kind of like hiring COBOL engineers to keep certain things running. Back in the 70s, when a lot of the financial institutions, local government, and a lot of different systems were put into place, that's kind of biting us in the butt in that, we haven't upgraded them and we're still needing people who were programming 50 years ago. We still need them today. And to avoid that, you can see where PlayStation wants to, 15 years, they were hoping enough was enough. But it looks like, according to all of you, enough was not enough. And they said that we see now that many of you are incredibly passionate about being able to continue purchasing classic games on PS3 and Vita for the foreseeable future. So they're hoping that, the business makes up for it. The move to close PlayStation Store on PS3 and Vita was met with a backlash from fans. It's impossible to play many PS3 or Vita games on PS4 or 5 unless they're on PlayStation Now or have been re-released. So, I don't know what all the backlash is. I mean, I guess a lot of that is being able to buy new, kind of those new games on PlayStation 3. I'm sure that to make that network handshake, Sony knows exactly how many consoles are being used. They know how many times a PlayStation 3 is being turned on and played. I'm sure that they were going by the books, by the numbers, and the intense online backlash came from people and their knee-jerk reactions. Much like LG and their closure of their phones, a lot of people can say that, wow, I loved LG, I love their phones, but at the end of the day, they had a pitiful market share, and I'm sure that PlayStation 3 and probably more so PlayStation Vita has also a pitiful market share when it comes to consoles. So it continues for now, but how long? Who's to say? Who is to say? Let's go ahead and continue on here with our next article. Let's see. Which one should take a little... Okay, so this one shouldn't take too long. Unfortunately, we have to name a, kind of announce a death. And this happened, just yesterday. It's unfortunate. One of my little passion projects here behind the scenes, and something that I really wanted to throw myself into, was interviewing tech titans. And I'm talking about like the ones that our tech world is kind of built on. I'm really happy that I was able to get an interview with with the inventor of the cell phone, because hey, that gentleman is currently 92 years old, and he's doing great. He is giving great interviews. It was a lot of fun to talk to him, but 92 is 92. And then you have this gentleman here, Charles Geschke. These founders of tech, essentially, that made modern day operating systems, made modern day file formats, made cell phones, made computer mice, made monitors, made LEDs. Just the other day, the inventor of the LED unfortunately passed away. The people who started this whole tech thing, and a monumental, I guess, kind of avalanche of things that we have built upon to make modern day society. I mean, I really want to interview these people before you can't, and it's just another note in a history book. To get their faces and voices on the radio would be, really, really fun. So that's something I'm hoping to do, but yeah, it's that transition. It's happening now. So with that being said, Charles Geschke, Adobe co-founder who helped develop the PDF, dies. And the PDF was an incredible advancement, because that PDF that we still use today, why that was so fundamentally different was that if you made a PDF, whatever you saw, everyone else saw. And when it came to early computing, I mean, let's face it, monitor resolution, operating system, the way everything displayed was super different. And, there was no guarantee that if you wrote up an email, if you wrote up a Word document, that it was ever going to show up the same on their system, which gave us the idea for the PDF. Saying that he made headlines in 1992 when he was kidnapped at gunpoint and held for ransom before being released unhurt after a 4-day ordeal. I had no idea he was held for ransom. Pretty crazy. They mentioned that Geschke died in California on Friday, and they said that the current CEO, widely known as Chuck, said that Geschke, widely known as Chuck, sparked the desktop publishing revolution. And they mentioned that, Geschke and Warnock were responsible for transformative software inventions, including PDF, Acrobat, Illustrator, Premiere Pro, Photoshop, and more. So this gentleman did a lot. In 1992, of course, as we mentioned, national headlines, was kidnapped. He was held at gunpoint in his office and taken to Hollister, California for 4 days. He was freed and found with $650,000 in ransom money. Took police to the location where he was being held. And in 2009, President Barack Obama gave him the National Medal of Technology. And yeah, he sparked a lot. And of course, Adobe, one of the biggest companies when it came to technology, and past, present, and probably future. So for the co-founder and of course the inventor of the PDF, yeah, that's the tech world lost a real titan. So there you go, on Friday. But hey, 82 is not a bad run. I'm sure that he had a very happy, healthy life other than those 4 days he was being held for ransom. Okay, our next story, let's be a little more upbeat. And, okay, let's be upbeat and bash on Apple for a little bit. One thing that I think Apple's trying to do with this is that, Apple products are expensive. There's no way around it. They're expensive. Apple knows it, you know it, I know it. And one of the ways that Apple is trying to soften that blow, either through carriers which again is why carriers are so popular, is because they'll give you a phone payment plan that is 2 to 3 years long. And that means that, hey, you're paying off that phone for 3 years. That's, $60 a month, but of course over 3 years can get expensive. Still, softens the blow. Another way to soften the blow is one of these things where you trade in your old device for a new device. Let's say you have a 1 or 2 generation old iPhone. That thing could still fetch you, $300-$400 to the right seller. And Apple, seeing the secondhand market, because they can buy the phones, refurbish them, send them overseas, or send them somewhere else to be sold again, makes them a lot of money. And that partnership that they're doing, turns out Apple's not really handling it in-house. No, they are actually handling it with a third party. And they said, and let's see, the third party is exactly, let's see, okay, Apple third party. Let's see, I'm trying to see which company it was again. Had it here. Anyways, we'll get to this article. The point is, they're using a different company and not just Apple themselves. They said that, and this article goes on for a bit. We're going to include the full thing in the show notes, this one from The Verge. And they said that, well, here's the problem. This gentleman, Daniel McGloin, decided to trade in his mid-2017 Apple MacBook on Friday this year. He was getting a pretty good deal. He was a software engineer in San Diego, and he said that he was quoted $350 for his laptop. He went in feeling pretty good. The laptop was in good condition, no apparent damage to the case, and had a fully functioning display and keyboard. He said that he packed up the device and shipped it in, and of course wanted to offset his purchase of a new MacBook Air. Well, the situation soon changed after his laptop arrived for inspection. Suddenly, his old MacBook, which he said $350, was suddenly going to be worth $140, less than half of what Apple originally quoted. And he's saying that the culprit was the display had 3 or more white spots. And it's a defect McGloin doesn't remember ever seeing, and one that he should have noticed. Typically, white spots on an LCD are evidence of a serious damage or burn-in and are clearly visible. Obviously, when your computer first boots up, it will go through like a BIOS or something like that. The white spots are totally visible. Should be super easy. He decided to search around online, and he found out that the company was an Atlanta-based contractor named Phobio. Phobio is an enterprise service provider that specializes in offering white label trade-in services other companies can pass off as their own. So obviously Apple is working with Phobio. Here's the thing. They said that The Verge inspected McGloin's MacBook in person after he rejected the trade-in offer, and we, of course being the authors of the article, could detect no such white spots or any discernible damage whatsoever. The laptop booted up and operates like new, and has since passed numerous online diagnostic tests. So, with that being said, it seems to be a pretty typical bait and switch. Get a really good price for trade-in, send in the device, and then chop it in half, reduce it by a lot, and then it's up to the customer to decide to go through the hassle of having it returned to them and all that kind of thing, or just take the lower appraised value. The article mentions that there are other examples of this, one including a MacBook Pro i5, which had a trade-in value of about $640, then had a revised trade-in value of about $210, just a third. That one by Mr. Carlos Pero, saying that the laptop in quote reduced by Phobio from $640 to $210. Pero also asked for his laptop back, and Phobio returned it. Upon inspection, he could detect and he could not detect any issues with his computer, and he showed a video of his MacBook Pro booting up to verify that there were no white spots present. Essentially, it's this take it or leave it, deal with the hassle or don't, and we're going to profit from it. And then the worst case, are some of these other examples that people are having with Phobio is that, well, they're sending in their products and then they have damage that was not there before, but when they ask for their product back, there is damage that was not there before. And yeah, they're saying that a large number of complaints about Phobio have a common theme: a MacBook or iPhone that seem to be in perfect working order, only for the device to later have an unexplained deficiency. Phobio, which is at the point in possession of the device, then offers the customer an option at a reduced quote. This presents a thorny set of choices for the device owner, primarily by seeding self-doubt as the real value of the product. And of course, what happens if something happens in transit? Hey, that's the customer's problem. With that being said, they have more and more examples, and many people have reported positive experiences with Phobio, many never realizing they weren't dealing with Apple directly. And one Verge staffer says that they were even given more money from Apple trade-in after the device exceeded the quality estimate that they were initially quoted on. So, honestly, to me, this seems more like Apple using a third-party service, which, again, is very hidden behind the veneer of Apple. And then on top of that, they are just chucking these things out. Like, it is quick, it is not very thorough, and in some cases, and I'm guessing a number of cases, it's not quite right. This is why you should always shop around. Check out Apple Trade-In, check out Gazelle. I'm sure that a lot of carriers out there do a trade-in program as well. Your devices are worth money. Don't just run out and trade it to the first person that's willing to give you that money. Because, hey, you could get a better deal. And it's all about getting that better deal. Okay, we have time for one more story, and let's do this one. I was actually curious about this one. And of course, you could always just sell it yourself. That is always an option. But hey, if you think you have problems with trade-ins, you can bet that eBay has its own set of problems as well. Okay, this one I was also curious in. This might be the last story of the day, and then we're gonna call it a day. But Reuters is calling it Britcoin. UK considers a new digital currency. And there's a reason why the rest of the world has not really adopted digital currency. It's because it leaves a certain segment of the population behind. Those who can't afford a phone, those who don't have access to a phone, those who can't get regular access to internet and updating these kinds of things, even offline kind of things. For the affluent or even middle class or even kind of like the lower class, having a phone is almost a guarantee. Not everyone has it, but a lot of people have it. For the for the destitute and the really lower class, as soon as you make that currency, digital, you're definitely leaving them behind. And that's a problem that no country seems to be able to really tackle, though it seems like something the UK is looking into. So I hope that they really do take that into consideration. Because right now, as the article says, they are launching a new task force between the Treasury and the Bank of England to coordinate exploratory work on a potential central bank digital currency. Essentially, if you want to make sure something doesn't get done, assign a task force to it. But hey, the UK, they've done crazier things, like leaving Europe. But still, leaving the European Union. The landmass is still there, so I hear. Now, other central banks are also looking at at whether to set up digital versions of their own currencies, essentially widening access to central bank funds, which only commercial banks can use at present. This could speed up domestic and foreign payments and reduce financial stability risk. China is a front runner to launch a central digital currency. Last week, the European Central Bank said it was studying an electronic form of cash to complement banknotes and coins, but any launch was several years away. It's not an easy thing to do, and of course the transitions, you can imagine, are going to be very, very rocky. Obviously you're going to have some kind of parallel, but immediate transition, probably not a thing, not even for China. Let's see, if you look at the homeless in the USA though, 90% of them have phones. Yes, a lot of homeless people have phones, but of course any kind of regular phone payment, a lot of them use prepaid phone cards. A lot of them use, kind of wireless carriers like Cricket, for example, prepaid phone plans and things like that. And of course, reliable access to internet, not the easiest thing. And even on top of that, even more so, is being able to charge the phone for long periods of time. There's a digital divide there, and digital currencies would definitely exacerbate that kind of thing. So with that being said, the government and the Bank of England have not yet made any decision on whether to introduce a digital currency in the UK, and will engage widely with stakeholders on the benefit, risk, and practicalities of doing so. Don't get me wrong, there are a lot of benefits to digital currency. Speed, ease of access, ease of use. I mean, yeah, it's up there. But at the same time, there's a lot of drawbacks. And just like self-driving cars, just like satellite internet, just like so many things that are just on the cusp, on the horizon, we're just not yet ready for them. So but I'm glad that they're looking into it. Hey, that's at least a step in the right direction, because up until now, hey, governments have been like, cryptocurrency, what the heck is that? This is a step in the right direction. So everyone, thank you for joining us. Thank you for tuning into Computer America, Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great day. Thank you so much. Catch you next time. Bye, everyone.